Never seen a smile so big on my little Lord lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bacon, I make plans for 7:45, and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Andre Lamar with the fantastic opening, and thank Goody Canby for putting that together, as well as Red. But as our longtime anthem and opening that I think we'll probably be updating very soon, that will include a lot of CFNers, so stay tuned to that. This week has been extremely busy. Every week coming back from the retreat is super, super busy, just trying to get caught up. So anybody who has tagged me, reached out to me, if I haven't got back to you, don't take offense to it. It's been a really busy week. Hello, Jeremy. Hello, Adele. How you doing? Luke's in the house. Sean Forche's here. Steve Shaw, yeah, baby. Nice to see you out on the weekend, my friend. That was much deserved. Dwayne Bennett's in the house. Dynamite Plastic, yeah, baby. Rob Alspatch, bud, you are on top of your game. MJ, casting to my 60-inch TV. Be careful with that. Hopefully it's still intact by the end of this. Richard Dunlop, how you doing? Sally's in the house. This look familiar, Sally? Yeah, baby. Eve's here. Yeah, miss you too, Adele. Hope everything is going well with you and the rest of your family. Lloyd's in the house. How you doing? Mike Moran's. Hey, thanks for showing up, guys. As I said, I know it's listen, it's a beautiful, beautiful night here in Ontario. I don't know what it's like across Canada, but we have been scorched with incredible heat and humidity, and it's nice to see that vacate and become pleasant. I'm really looking forward to maybe having a glass of wine after live, and perhaps maybe even a cigar, and just sitting outside without having to bathe in my own sweat. I hope you folks are going to be doing the same. For the 20 of you that have showed up, something that I wanted to mention to you, the format change. This show, we have listened to our community. They'd like it to be a little bit shorter, so we're going to call it the Power Hour. We're going to do our best to keep it under an hour. If we do not, we are at the end of the program going to see who it is that's watching with us, take a snapshot of the list, and you will be added to a wheel, and we'll be giving a prize away if the show goes over an hour. So fingers crossed it doesn't. Speaking of Shaw family, they again wanted me to reach out to all of you folks to thank them. One of these days, Steve Shaw, perhaps Don, maybe even the whole family, who knows, will come on here and they will profess their gratitude towards our CFN community. You guys really hit it out of the park, and you've instilled the faith of what the CFN family's all about. The Shaws have been overwhelmed with support. So on behalf of the Shaw family, thanks. You guys have done really well, including our good friend Richard. Now, we haven't sent him the remainder. Steve, as I knew, would only take the portion that he needed, and the remainder would be offered up to Richard Dunlop, who unfortunately his son-in-law has contracted leukemia. Not like it's a disease. Obviously, cancer is cancer, and hopefully he's able to fight it. But in the meantime, he's got a 2-year recovery. Even if he does recover 100%, it's a 2-year recovery, and he's only got 16 weeks of paid leave. So CFN, with the remainder of what's left over from the Serena Shaw, unfortunate circumstance, I'm not sure how else to say it, we're going to be offering up a mortgage payment because as of right now, Richard is doing his darndest to make sure they're meeting their financial obligations, and I can't imagine how tough that is. So thanks to all you incredible CFNers for giving, And as I said, a big shout out to the Shaw family for offering up the remainder to give to the Dunlop family. Awesome stuff. We are in the midst of putting together another fundraiser as well, because we want to create what is called a CFN slush fund for unfortunate misfortunes that happen, like Serena, like what's going on with Richard's son-in-law. So we'll be setting that up. I have a call right after this with James Shembry and Chuck D, and hopefully Bill Mafdruck, and we'll have something figured out because, as I said, there's been a lot of work that's been going on behind the scenes, and stay tuned to that. Speaking of staying tuned, next Thursday, Cameron Tate's going to be with us, and this is an incredible recipe. He makes it sound so friggin' easy and makes it look so easy, but he's going to be putting together another Cooking with Cameron segment, and it's going to include walleye almondine with marinara sauce. I can't wait for that. So that's not this Thursday, but next Thursday. So stay tuned to what walleye almondine shall look like with a marinara sauce. Big shout out and thank you to all the CFNers, of course, that attended the CFN retreat. You guys have been posting all kinds of pics and videos. Just incredible. The owners of Horwood Lake Lodge wanted me to extend a big thank you to you guys as well. For taking the time and making some incredible posts. We still have lots to get through. Speaking of which, our sponsors, can't thank you guys enough, but we're going to do our best with some of the videos that have been sent to me. We're going to be putting those together in the coming days. But yeah, man, I'll tell you, what a great time it was, and we're looking forward to next year. It'll be the same week that we're going. But speaking of retreats, stay tuned to this. Our buddy Walter out in Saskatchewan is working very, very hard behind the scenes to put together a Western retreat. Yes, a Western retreat in the province of Saskatchewan. So for all you CFNers in Saskatchewan, I want you to stay tuned, because we'll be unveiling some incredible news that we are now going to have a CFN retreat Western style. And Walter, as I said, is going to be going over, hopefully figuring out the rest of it so that we can get the details to you as soon as possible. But stay tuned, because the resort sounds phenomenal. The fishery sounds incredible. It's right up the same alley as Horwood, but it'll be really, really cool to have a CFN retreat on another provincial soil. So that's awesome. So tonight is the last night, too, that we come without a topic. Our featured guests and speakers will be speaking about stuff that they have brought tonight. But going forward, we want to hear from you. So at the very end of the show, whoever's remaining, we're going to take a tally. We might even do a poll, and we will find out who, in fact, and what, in fact, you guys want to hear when it comes to species specific. Perhaps maybe there's a topic that you'd like to touch on. But needless to say, it is going to be up to you guys to decide our content. Last announcement, and this one is a big one. The Fall Brawl is going to commence. Mike is going to be, if he hasn't already, he's in the midst of putting a post together with all the details, but the Fall Brawl is a go. Shimano has stepped up in a huge way. They have some Shimano swag prizes that will be made available. We'll put some prizes together that we have left over from the CFN retreat, as well as our online tournament. But we do have a handful of stuff that's left. But we are hoping to have a youth division included in the Fall Brawl, so stay tuned to that. But as I said, needless to say, we are going to have a Fall Brawl, so stay tuned. Corey, how you doing? Are you still dealing with wildfires in Oregon? Yeah, BC, your area, Corey. It's a blaze right now, and our thoughts and prayers are with all the CFNers that are dealing with that, because that's not fun either. But you've got hurricanes, you've got wildfires, you've got COVID, you've got a whole mess of stuff going on. But you know what? When you get a thing like this from Richard, and this is his thank you, and I wanted to read this to you. I want to thank you and all of CFN. We are truly a family, not just a group of anglers that enjoy fishing and getting together. We truly care about each other, and we'll go out of our way to help whenever we need it. As you have witnessed, I am a type of guy that carries his heart on his sleeve, and CFN has touched my family and in so many ways. Thank you, Scotty, and all of CFN. So when you're having that kind of effect on, you know, the average angler, the average Joe, that's what it's all about. And I can't thank our CFN community enough for making a difference in the world. So yeah, absolutely. The firefighters and all those who are fighting those fires, our hearts and prayers go out to you, because it's a thankless job, but we're so glad that you do it. Well, before we bring on our first guest, let us have a word from our sponsor. We love this video, and it's what gets us going. Stay tuned.
Oh, there's one right there. That's a good one too.
Yeah, well, that wasn't the video that we normally play. I pressed the wrong one.
I'm offended.
Wally, I get what's that?
I'm offended.
You know, and you have every right to be. I may have got the walleye amandine wrong with the marinara sauce as well. So Cameron, if I said it wrong, I apologize. But needless to say, it's going to be a heck of a walleye dish next Thursday with Cooking with Cameron. Jim, how you been, buddy?
I'm doing good. That recipe sounds a little too cultured I think, for most of the people here. It's myself included.
I was going to say, hopefully, present company included. But yeah, as I said, it sounds harder than I'm sure it is, and you know, Cameron always seems to make it look easy. So we're looking forward to another delicious dish that we may be able to dive into and do ourselves. So,
Man, you know what? I heard you talk about the money going to Richard's family and things like that years ago when I had the cancer, and it was 26 months they treated me for, and it was every month I had to go buy a needle that the nurse came to the house and gave me, and the needle started off at $1,130 and ended up at $1,370. At the end, we were done. So you're looking at $35,000 in needles over that 26 months. Not to mention 75 trips to the hospital in Ottawa and the gas and a few nights you spent in hotels and all that stuff. So I think it's really, really nice that we're going to have a bit of a fund established for people. I mean, I was absolutely blessed at what the fishing community did. They had fundraisers for me. They had a big tournament, the Kingston Open. They made it a commemorative one, and it was really, really cool. That was when I really realized in life how much all the fishing people cared about me. So it's really, really cool.
No, it is, and as our community never ceases to amaze. But to put together a fundraiser like James and Chuck and Bill have done behind the scenes when I was away at the retreat, it'd be really interesting to hear the phone call tonight to find out where we're at. But going forward, the CFN slush fund is exactly for that kind of purpose, and hopefully we'll be able to help others, in their plight, whatever it is that they may be dealing with and going through. But I appreciate that, Jim.
So I felt cooler today. It was ridiculously hot. Like when I went to the gym this morning, I came out of the gym and got in my truck, and the way the truck will get a little warmer inside. When I turned the truck on, the temperature of my truck was 40 degrees inside the truck, and I thought to myself, oh my God. And by the time I got up to the 401, it had dropped, and I looked at it and I thought, oh my Lord, it's still 33. like just the normal, like the temperature. And it actually dropped in the afternoon down to about 30. And I guess it's supposed to go down to about 18 here tonight. We had already cleared out
It's
here.
refreshing. I don't know, Jim. Unfortunately, just being a larger guy and not able to take off the winter coat, and I don't shed anything. At least that's not what my wife says. But I tell you, this heat it does me in, and to feel it the way it is certainly makes it a lot easier to fish. Makes it a lot easier on the fish. But you had mentioned before we went on live that really we are at the apex of what is going to become a feeding frenzy. Everything's sort of lining up. You were mentioning. Tell us a little bit more about what that means.
Yeah, it's just, one thing I've really learned is I was never a person who kept records. I thought I was smart enough. I didn't have to. Doesn't hurt. But it's the same old thing. If you're not going to use them, it doesn't do any good to keep them. But Facebook memories have taught me a lot. Because remember about a month ago when I was whining, catching any fish out the back, I'm giving selling my fishing rods, like taking up golf, whatever. Pull a Happy Gilmore, got the hockey stick in the bag, but I'm ready to go. But it just, you watch that and you see it. And I was seeing the memories. It was the exact same thing. And I saw the memory come up where I posted the black picture and said I caught a really big one after dark. Couldn't see it, and had a picture of a skunk on it and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like it was just like it happened to me like 5-6 nights out the back here this year. I never saw a fish. I never heard one. I didn't see one. Like nothing, eh? And I'm sitting down there last night. I don't know, 45 minutes goes by, so I'm just about ready to leave. And then it's almost dark. The street lights are on, everything else. And I mean, it's getting dark. And it just exploded. The fish wanted to play. And, like I said, I'd have had, if I was fishing a tournament for 5 fish, I would have had 16 pounds sitting in a damn lawn chair in like no time of largemouths. They were all nice 3-pound fish and so aggressive. And I didn't change what I was doing. I didn't change anything up. I was just fishing with a flick shake. And I was using a bigger one than I usually use. But I mean, I had been using it for half an hour. In fact, I'd gone through 3 or 4 different rods that I brought down. They wouldn't touch a frog. They wouldn't even look at it. There was no boils or nothing. And then all of a sudden, pow, it just lights up and they're so aggressive. The hits. And I mean, those fish didn't just get there. I mean, I'm in the back of a bay in 3 or 4 feet of water.
Yeah.
They just, it clicked. But you got to remember in the summertime when people say, oh, I can't catch the fish, they're not biting. The fish are biting more than ever. Because the water's the hottest it's going to be at that time of the year. Fish are cold-blooded. That's when their metabolism is as fast as it can go. So they have to eat. They have no choice. They have to eat. It's just finding them. And, when strike windows become very small, that distance that a fish will travel to get something, and they get really small in the fall, but you see some of the catches in the fall because you do things right. And, people say to me that the fish aren't biting. I can't get a bite. The fish aren't biting. Well, there was a tournament on your lake last weekend, and 23 pounds won, and there was a dozen guys that had 18 or 20 pounds. So don't tell me the fish aren't biting.
Yeah.
You just got to figure out. You got to put the pieces together, and this is one of the things that with my I had to wash my shirt that says if it ain't working, stop doing I see a guy comes in the back here every night in a kayak, and he goes over by the dock. And he fishes, and he does the same thing every night, and then he leaves. And I've never seen him catch a fish to this day. I've never seen him catch a fish. So it's you just never know what's going on. But the best time to go fishing is whenever you can go. Like as soon as we're done here, I got a couple of emails to answer. I'll be back out. I'll be down there.
Well, it's funny, Jim, too, when it comes to the night bite, just recently, especially with that hot weather, the movie I Am Legend comes to mind where, as soon as the sun vacates, everything comes alive. It's a ghost town, even though they're undercover, but they're not biting near as aggressively as they are. Once that sun goes down, holy smokes, like you said, you see all the bug activity on the surface. There's lots of larvae floating around. You've got the minnows that are now coming into the shallows if they're not already there. which means, you know, the bigger fish are coming in to see those forage schools. As I said, to me, that night bite right now is the best it's ever been, and probably the best.
Summertime, the night bite is good. Like, there's another time that the night bite is really good is in May, just after the spawning season with walleyes. You know,
Yeah.
because their activity is all at night to spawn, and when they're done spawning, they almost feel, a lot of the guys I've talked with that are really in the know about that stuff feel that it takes them a while to shift their activity back to normal, and not just at night when they be spawning. So at night, that's why, you know, the walleye bite can be pretty wild in May at night. You know, shore fishing and whatever, and it's just paying attention to all these things. I just see so many people. I want to cry, Scotty. They're doing the same thing. Same every week. They're doing the same thing, sitting on the same rock or in the same spot. They pull up in the boat, they drop the anchor, they sit there for 3 hours, they catch they catch a perch and a bullhead, and they leave, and they say the fish aren't biting. You know, well, I got them in the spring here, but they ain't here now. They're gone.
Yeah.
You have to go where the fish are, and you know that's why you see guys that are very successful at fishing, and not just tournament fishing. Like you've heard me talk. I've got some buddies that I know here that don't fish tournaments, and whoa, can they fish? I always used to say, you know, I was happy that they didn't fish when I fished in tournaments, because a lot of times I'd have been a spot closer to the bottom. You know, like they definitely capable of catching fish.
Now, Jim, with the water temperature as high as it is, you know, we get those rain events that come in, perhaps maybe even a cold front, as we mentioned. You know, temperatures are going to drop a little bit overnight. That warm water isn't really affected immediately. So,
no, it's just the top of the water. Like I see guys out on the boat, they say, "Oh, you got to wait till the water gets warm in the afternoon." Do you really think that the lake goes up and down 5 or 10 degrees in a day? It's just that top little bit of the water that heats and cools, until you have like a seasonal change where the water is, you know, like it doesn't get as hot in the daytime, but it gets a little cooler at night. And then eventually, when the top cools off enough, it sinks into the hot water, because cold water is heavier, and that's what causes the turnover. But that's a slow process, a real slow process.
I have to ask you, when you get those drop in temperatures in the first, say, foot of the water column, is that the best time for top water? Is there can an argument be made that when you get those rain events and you get a drop in temperature in the first foot of the water column, that's a time to
I wouldn't think so, because seldom would the fish be living in that foot of water. You know, even when they hit a top water, they're probably coming, you know, from several feet down. You know, if you're fishing for a largemouth in shallow water, you know, sure, they might be three feet down, but they're underneath all the mats and pads and weeds and things. So it is a lot cooler down there, because the penetration of the sun isn't there. The other thing you really got to pay attention to is when fish are sitting, their backs are black. I'm sure most people have had this experience where they catch a fish early in the year, a perch or a crappie or a walleye or whatever, and they'll grab it across the back, and you feel the fish, and it's hot, it's warm, because it's been sitting with the sun beating on its back. So its body temperature is really way more than the water around it. It's warmed up a whole bunch more than you would think, right? And that's something that you have to pay attention to.
Cameron just wanted me to mention that Tammy has selected the next dish for the next issue of Just Fishing. You know, FYI, it's delicious. I can't imagine you making a dish that isn't delicious, but looking forward to seeing what Tammy has decided.
Okay. Hey, who let you pick the dish one? Sorry, honey. She's skating right now.
Yeah. Oh, is she really?
Yeah. So I can look tough. Yeah. I didn't go to the gym tonight, because usually we go to the gym in the evening. We try to go when she skates, because my gym's 5 minutes away.
Yeah.
I try to skate. She skates, and I go to the gym. So we only have to make one trip to Kingston, because it's a half an hour and 35 minutes each way. So we do it that way. So.
And I would assume you are busier than ever tying fluff and various other jigs to get ready either for the fall or winter.
Yeah, we're at it right now too with the fall issue. We've been working on that. In fact, Tammy will go tooth and nail tomorrow morning, and it's she's already been at it. But when she actually starts building the paper once we've assembled everything,
right?
she'll
What are some of the topics that you could see us talking about in the next issue for the fall?
Oh, we got all kinds of stuff. Of course, we've got the ice fishing insert. We got Tim Aller doing something in there, Mr. Brosdahl. I still have to get one more thing. I got Bernie Schultz is going to do a big wrap up for us on the St. Lawrence River, which is of interest to a lot of people because Bernie lives in Florida, but he spent all his youth up in the north in New York and fished the St. Lawrence to death, and he had a pretty good catch. And that big fish that he caught, it was cool for me to watch him catch a 6-pound, 2-ounce smallmouth in the tournament on a jig that I made. So things like that are really, really cool. But well, we've got that. I got Al Linder on his favorite lures, some of his favorite things. So you'll have to give that a listen to. We're hoping to have an ice fishing piece on Link.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, just something a little different because they're really becoming popular. People have realized that, yes, they may be ugly and look like they're half an eel and all this stuff and everything else. Not to be confused with a bowfin, but they are really, really good to eat. So it's always
your man's lobster. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've heard that from so many people, and I've never tried it. I really have to get out and try it. I gotta get out. Yeah, and another thing I noticed, I just when I came back in the office here tonight, I clicked my emails on, and I got a delivery notice from Vexillor, so I know it's coming to ice fishing season when they send you a new unit.
Right on.
So yeah, getting close.
And perhaps we might have a guest on a fireside chat coming up soon, I would imagine.
Yeah, we can do that anytime you want.
Okay, buddy. We'll stay tuned to that, as well as the next issue of Just Fishing, and we look forward to seeing you pull out some hogs tonight, my friend.
Yeah, I hope I yank a couple out there. Watch later. I'll post about it. Maybe get the post before you're done. Oh no, I won't get a chance because you have to keep it to an hour. You get your fingers.
Absolutely, yeah. We're gonna break the bank if we don't. I'll tell you.
I'll Jim, take the yardstick to your knuckles.
Jim, as always, bud, thanks so much for joining us. And if you had your choice, what would be the species you'd like to talk about next week?
Largemouth bass, maybe.
All right.
Because I still have my entries for the 122 that I caught. I haven't put them in yet. So.
Well, let's hopefully get some largemouth bass votes in our comments at the end of the show, so we can find.
We can do whatever, guys.
I know. But if you agree with Jim, you want to hear more about largemouth, make sure you post that in the comments. Jim, as always, bud,
fish is a fish.
Thanks so much for joining us and doing what you do. Keep up the great work, my friend.
Thanks, guys. Be safe out there.
Cool. Take care, bud. All right. Now, hopefully this is the video that I wanted to play that I didn't get for Jim, but Lawrence is going to be the beneficiary. Lawrence, it's not often we start your segment with that video. I'm sure Jim will be cursing right about now. Love that video, and it certainly gets us pumped and ready to go fishing.
Hey, if the shoe fits, wear it, eh? I mean, I'm good with that.
Good too. Lawrence, many things that I know you want to talk about, but one of the things that you mentioned before we went on air with the upcoming federal election, and I would assume there's going to be a provincial election not too far behind it. What are some of the things as anglers that we should be made aware of, or at least get in tune with some of the topics being discussed at the federal level?
Well, we've mentioned this 30 by 30 conservation initiative. It's really, 30% of our oceans, freshwater, rivers, lakes, and terrestrial territory. In Canada, we committed internationally to protect 30% of our territory, right? The United States have done the same thing. So that's a big question. What does protect mean? And I'm just looking here. I was reading, and the United States has identified 2 areas of Lake Ontario, one in the St. Lawrence River end and the other in the west end of Lake Ontario, that they've identified as marine protection areas that they're proposing. So what does that mean for angling, right, in Lake Ontario? And would that apply to Canadians, or I guess if you venture onto the American side of the of Lake Ontario? So there's all that, that the big unknown about this 30 by 30 initiative. The Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters has called together the Hunting and Fishing Collaborative, the National Hunting and Fishing Collaborative, and it's organizations, nonprofit, non-industry, non-partisan organizations from across Canada, representing over 370,000 paid members who have joined these organizations through their dues, like the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters in Ontario, with their 100,000 members, and they said, look, what do these 370,000 plus people want to ask their politicians? So they're asking all the parties, what about these 5 questions? Now, 2 of them have to do with hunting. They're about wasting disease, and they're about gun policies. So we won't get into that. But the fishing ones, it's about promoting hunting, fishing, and trapping. That's the big general promotion side of things. Government makes a lot of money on our licenses, and a lot of money is generated through these activities. They should promote it a little bit more. Take pride, do it, promote it. Then the other 2 are aquatic invasive species and conservation. So there's some good topics, right? Some good topics that we want to know where government stands on these issues. So I think they're out there doing our thing. We've got more organizations across Canada working regionally, asking their politicians questions as well. We all got to be asking our politicians, where do you stand on these types of issues?
You're right, and as I said, no better time than the present to do that, because as they have to unveil their platform, they have to show us where they stand. A lot of these initiatives would have originated during the Trudeau campaign, I'm assuming, Lawrence. So, could it be safe to say that if a Conservative government would be voted in, would they abandon some of these initiatives, or perhaps maybe retool them?
So when they say nonpartisan, they're not technically taking sides in terms of, but they're asking all the parties, where do you stand on these things? So, has the Liberal government done these things? Have they stood up and taken action on these things? Right. Where did the Conservative Party, fit into all of this stuff, 7-8 years ago? So we don't want to look backwards. We want to look forward. We're picking a new government or picking the same government over again. But these are issues and these are policies. I think it's so important as we focus on this 30 by 30, as we focus on conservation areas, as we focus on land claims and Indigenous conservation and protection agreements, negotiating those. And we've seen a whole bunch of these come out recently on the west coast of Canada, huge swaths of west coast, shoreline and land being turned over to Indigenous communities to form Indigenous conservation protection areas. So, no consultation with fishing and hunting groups, right? So we've got to get onto the radar. That's the big thing. We need to get on the radar. And being partisan is not going to get us on the radar. We need to be on the radar of all the parties so they all start questioning and talking about it.
Yeah. Something that I had overread, I'm not sure where, I don't know what the publication was that I read it. It could have been just a post But there's a rumor going around that perhaps in order for our government, our country, to supplement the cost of COVID, they're looking at ideas to sell crown land. I find that extremely dangerous because, of course, some of that crown land is some of the most protective, prolific, and I would say just downright beautiful areas of Ontario and the rest of Canada that I would hate to see sold for the sake of supplementing. But I guess the price has to come from somewhere.
11% of Canada is privately owned. So 89% of Canada, of our territory, our land, right, is crown, either provincial or federal crown land. Now, that all came about when we passed an act, I think back in the 1850s or something like that, that said all land that is not occupied belongs now to the crown. And that when we took it all away from the First Nations communities and Inuit communities, and we just said, oh, no, you're not there. Sorry, we didn't see you there. You're on crown land now. So, it wasn't always crown land, but it's crown land now. So, whether we give it back or turn it into conservation areas or give it or make it part of reconciliation or self-governance or there's a lot of pressure in that direction, right? Or do we sell it to private entities, and make more, you finally get to buy that piece of land that you've been taking those 100-year leases on. Like all the fishing lodges in Ontario are built on crown land where they have a lease to use that land. But what it means is if they try to sell that, that lodge operation, they only sell the properties and the brand value of the name. They can't sell the land. They don't own the land. So you walk into a bank and say, hey, I want to buy this $2 million fishing and hunting lodge operation. And they say, okay, yeah. How much land does it come with? Well, it doesn't come with any land, but it comes with some nice old buildings, Try to get a mortgage on that, right? You're not going to get a big mortgage on a bunch of old buildings. Well, so it makes it tough for these people to retire out of these businesses.
Interesting. I didn't know that all of them were in that kind of situation. I thought some of it was private land, but that's really interesting. So it is a lease. I would say probably no different than, say, a forestry or mining company that leases a certain parcel of land to mine or deforest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not all. Like, sure, there's private properties on popular lakes in southern Ontario, like Nipissing and Ontario. That is privately owned land. But when you're dealing with a hunting and fishing territory that's, a couple thousand acres, you can't just go out and buy a couple thousand acres and say it's. First of all, you're not going to be able to buy it. You just you lease the rights, and they want you. They want you. What are you going to do with the land? And they make sure they have lots of rules on what you can do with the land.
And Kevin brings up a comment here that is troubling, and obviously the government is always looking for ways to generate money. And when it comes to a national park and the staff and the maintenance that's required to keep those up, I understand that there's an entry fee, but when you have the province of Manitoba already asking for proposals for private business to basically take and erect parkland, obviously one park, one beach on a lake in Manitoba was sold, and now people have to pay to use the beach. Mm-hmm. I understand that with our national parks, that there's a fee associated with using them, but it's somewhat reasonable. At least I think it's somewhat reasonable. When you go to the private sector, is it going to remain as reasonable as it is with the national parks?
Well, I was just up whitewater rafting on the Ottawa River, just 100 kilometers north of Ottawa, right? Mm-hmm. And there's an entrepreneur up there. He's been buying up all the whitewater rafting companies. Now he owns almost the whole strip of land on the Ontario side of the Ottawa River. I won't mention the name of his company, but now he says he's doing it to keep it natural and pristine and free of development. But he's also now saying that if you just want to kayak down the river and you need to get to the river and cross a piece of his land or something, he's going to charge you a permit, like a $30 usage permit to kayak down the river. He doesn't own the river, but in the sense of it, he's now taken control of that whole Ontario side of the river, right? and that's just wrong. That's just wrong. This is a national heritage, this whole whitewater district. And my friend, he has a Esprit whitewater rafting. He works on the Quebec side, and he owns a couple pieces of land, a put in and a takeout piece of land for his whitewater rafts. But you know what? He says it's just wrong that some company should just want to control it all and control access to it and make you pay.
Interesting. Richard Dunlop brings up that in Quebec, lodges, so hunting and fishing rights to huge property, you can hunt and fish there unless you book at the lodge. So I'm assuming you can't just, there's no public access to some of these lakes. You can't just go in there and fish unless you book at the lodge. It's an interesting concept. I'd have to say the province of Quebec has certainly flipped the script on stewardship and how to go about protecting fisheries and hunting. Some agree with it, some really agree with it, and then there's some people that are opposed because it cuts down to the amount of accessibility.
Okay, but remember, Quebec, it wasn't that long ago that, a lot of these fishing lodges and hunting lodges in Quebec and have been around for 150 years. And the government of Quebec just said, you know what? No, you can't take ownership of all these vast tracts of land.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen. And they took it back. And they said, this is for the people, for all people, not just a handful of very rich English people, right? This is for all people. And they've made these sort of zones, and then they have committees made up of all the stakeholders involved with that zone who control, the access and conservation rules that go on in that zone. So it's managed at the very local level, at the most local level. It's managed.
You're right, and Jeanette, you bring up the ultimate point. This is the coup de grace, the hammer on the nail. It's all about liability. In a lot of cases, folks don't want you on a parcel of land because, God forbid, something happens to you. They're going to have to take on the liability of it. So with all that said, with all those different circumstances, when it comes to accessibility, it's going to be really interesting to see how our government reacts going forward, how our stewardship and how our land ownership is dealt with in the future. But in the meantime, Lawrence is suggesting that we all get informed and ask those hard questions.
Mm-hmm. So I've got one more topic. Do we still have time?
Yep, still got time.
All right. So the other thing if you check out the Bluefish News, it's up on Bluefish Canada. You'll see the opening editorial is about Watersheds Canada and their work. I interviewed them 3 years ago where they were naturalizing the Natural Edge program, the land, the shoreline in Bay of Quinte with some other groups. And they said, for a lake to be really ecologically sustainable, you need 75% of the shoreline to be naturalized. And when you take that away, when you make it all just a nice grassy plain and you pull out the weeds and put in beaches everywhere, the lake in dies, right? There's no more habitat left for the fish, for all the animals that live along the shoreline. In Quebec, you have to leave 10 meters of shoreline. If it's over a 30-degree slope, you have to leave 15 meters of shoreline on your private property. You can't cut anything down. You can't cut the grass, the shrubs, the trees, anything. In Ontario, we have Watersheds Canada working now in Ontario and across Canada, working with property owners that say, hey, look, we see you got this nice lawn going right down to the shoreline, but you know what? It would be so much better for the lake if you did this. And they show pictures and the plants, and then the property owners get on board, and then this program actually brings in students and plants the natural trees and shrubs and grasses back into the shore, back along the shoreline. Well, now they've taken it one step further and they've created fish habitat, because I was talking to them a few years ago. I said, that'd be great, but why don't you extend that right into the water? So now they're doing that. They're working on regenerating walleye beds with adding new stones. They're talking about cold water streams, so more shade and more trees and overhanging trees and removing pools on streams to keep them cool and running fresh. And this is the big one. Stick bundles, right? We've all been involved with fishing clubs that have been involved with putting stick bundles into lakes for habitat. You have spawning areas for fish, and then you have areas for fish can go and just cool off after the spawn, or just the young can go and hang out, and the older ones can go and feed. And we were talking about that just before. We're talking about a lot of people in the United States, they put their stick bundles out from their dock, maybe 20, 30 feet on an angle somewhere hidden. And they know when their grandchildren come, or just sitting on the end of the dock in the evening, they can cast out there and catch a fish. But in Ontario, in most provinces, you need to get a permit. But where is a good place to put these things? And are the angling community being involved with this? Sure, everyone wants to GPS this stuff, right? Go back and fish it later in 3 or 4 years. But I think it's more important. Are you putting it in areas where people normally troll, bottom bounce, walleye? Like if this is an area where everyone sort of does some bottom bouncing for walleye, to just go and plant a whole bunch of stick bundles in there, or even 3 or 4, it just causes mayhem, right? Yeah. It just mayhem. So there's places where they should go. The walleye, the walleye trollers, not so fussy about stick bundles. The jig fishers, the bass and crappie people, very favorable on stick bundles. But these are conversations we need to be having too before all of this happens and we lose some control about this.
You're 100% right, Lawrence, and we will probably do that next week. We've gone a little bit over, but just before you go, what would be the fish species that you'd like to talk about next week?
I think I'm with Big Jim. I think it's still like bass fishing season, right? In my mind,
right on.
But I'd go musky too, because I think warm weather and all the hot temperatures we've been having on the rivers this year and the lower levels, the musky fishing. Have you been musky fishing in those back bays where the temperatures are way over 80 degrees?
Yeah.
Or what have you been doing to fish in the cooler waters?
Right on, brother. Well, we will see you next week.
We're going to
be doing a poll, and we'll find out exactly what it is we'll be talking about. Thanks so much, Lawrence, for all you do, my friend. You take care and have a great week.
Thanks, Scotty.
All right, buddy. You take care. All right. Let's bring in Jason.
The fear of failure is failure itself. The world of science rewards the ones who are willing to try and fail. Because without the courage to embrace failure, ideas remain ideas. But with that courage to fail and to learn, ideas can change the world.
J-Dog, how you doing this wonderful evening?
Doing great, Scotty.
Fantastic. I saw that you guys had quite a trip. Was that all family that you were out fishing with up in the northern part of Algonquin?
No. That was actually a combination of bunch of university buddies who we used to all hang out, go fishing, and we've been trying to get together as a group to take all of our, wives and partners and kids.
Right.
And
you mentioned that last week. Yeah, that's awesome. 16
of us, man, made the trek in. So we took the shuttle up. Shout out to Opiongo Outfitters. They have their old cedar strip boats built out of Powassan, Ontario. Loaded the canoes up on top. We went up to the north arm of Opiongo. Went into Happy Isle Lake. And no, these aren't unknown lakes. If you look at a map of the park, they're right there. And yeah, we spent a few days on Happy Isle. We did some fishing. We had to fish for subsistence fishing, Scotty. We packed. We went to eat fish. We if we didn't catch fish, we were eating trail mix for supper.
Well, listen, and you guys had quite the haul, but a lot of it had to do with the lead core. Tell us a little bit about how effective that lead core is.
Yeah, we've been dragging lead core. I like going to the park in the summer because the bugs aren't as bad. I'm not trying to be a softie about it, but I like August because the bugs aren't as bad and the fish are more predictable where they're going to be. Basically, they're just at that thermocline, and you got to get down. Anywhere from. Depends on each lake and depends on a bit of the weather patterns. But what I did was this year I went easy. So I repurposed one of my Abu. It's actually a catfish reel, but it's got the trolling handle on there. Yeah. So it's a little bit faster to retrieve and it's smaller than a typical line counter. But I don't need a line counter when I'm dragging lead core in these lakes. So I was able to put 7 colors of 18-pound lead core on there. and we were trolling down 4 to 5 colors for our fish, and just a 20-pound fluoro leader. Kept it all small. Now, I got a tip for everyone out there. I actually found, so I used 2 old Berkley trolling rods that I have. You don't want to go too expensive and too fancy when you're carrying these things into the park. But a buddy of mine got me on this. The best rod for trolling back lakes right here. I'm going to give it to you. An ugly stick.
Yeah.
So Scotty, lead core, so 6.5 foot medium heavy ugly stick. You're in a canoe, you're tipping, it's rough out there. You're trying to fight a fish on an 8-foot rod. Don't bother. 6.5 foot, 2-piece ugly stick has all the bend you need to, because you're loading up that rod, that fish grabs that spoon or that body bait, keeps the rod bent, and it's 6.5 feet. You can net it yourself, so the two of you aren't in a boat trying to fight over who's going to land that fish. So I learned something this weekend: ugly sticks, and they'll be going on the next trip for sure. And the 2 baits we used, I got them right here, man. Still got the leader on it.
Beautiful. Williams
50, half and half. And then most of my fish came on. This is a new bait from Berkley called a hit stick. They designed it to be like a balsa type bait. Yeah. And I'll just drop it in here in the link. But what it is, Scotty, is it has this. See those little weights right there?
Yeah.
It just gives it a little more casting distance, but you control with it. They're pretty inexpensive, and it just has a nice roll. Just has a real nice roll to it. So I was trolling the body baits. Trevor was dragging the spoons. And we did one small thing to help the park. I mentioned it in the pre-show. We actually caught a big, almost 4-pound smallmouth in this lake, and they aren't supposed to be there. Yeah, it's a natural lake trout lake. It has been for thousands of years. They're not sure how the smallmouth got in. There's no creeks, no major creeks or rivers coming in. It was rumored smallmouth were in there. Park biologists weren't for sure. So leave it to me on my vacation to catch a smallmouth in a lake where they're not supposed to be. And what was neat is I did kill it. It became part of our supper. And it looked like it was reabsorbing its own eggs inside.
That's the cool thing you were mentioning. And I've heard of it. I don't think I've really seen evidence of it with walleye. But yeah, that is, I know what happens, and it's amazing that the smallmouth didn't spawn this year, because water temps were kind of perfect for them. No,
even where we were up in the lake we were at, like the surface temps, like I had to use nature's refrigerator the one day, and let me tell you what I did. So we caught 4 lake trout, which was our limit. So I'm allowed 2. Trevor's allowed 2. We caught our limit Friday morning. We weren't having fish until supper. So what I did was I actually had a 50-foot length of paracord, which when you're camping in the bush, always bring lots of paracord. Hang your food, hang your tarps. So I tied a mesh bag full of rocks, put my stringer on the paracord, dropped my stringer down into 40 feet of water, and I used my water bottle as a float. And so when I came back 4 hours later, those fish were nice and cold because they were down below that thermocline, and nothing was wasted. And by having it on shore, there was always seagulls and stuff around. I didn't want those fish to be wasted. So we sunk them in 40 feet of water, and we pulled them up 4 hours later. They were fine, and we filleted them up, and it was fantastic. Fantastic 2 nights of fish. Stovetop and instant mashed potatoes. If you want to do backcountry camping, those are 2 popular sides with Heather and the kids: stovetop and instant mashed potatoes. You could do both or just do one, but yeah, it was great.
So Jeanette is asking what you meant. Obviously, she's talking about the smallmouth and the fact that they are not native to that body of water, or perhaps one of those wrongful invasive species. How do we conduct ourselves, and how do we deal with the fish that we catch that are considered invasive or non-native to a body of water?
Sometimes we don't have great knowledge of that, Scotty. And I'm just sharing a link in the chat about Algonquin Park, and it's a history of stocking fish in Algonquin Park. And now I was fortunate that myself and the 3 gentlemen on the trip with me, we're all biologists, and we've all spent time working in Algonquin Park. And 2 of the guys I was with started their careers working at the Harkness Laboratory in Algonquin, which is the longest running, oldest fish research station, I think, in Ontario. And I'm lucky that I know the stocking history of Algonquin because of these guys. But I did look it up, and Happy Isle Lake, where we were off the north end of Opiongo, isn't supposed to have smallmouth in it. And it's been rumored to have it, but not, how should I say this? Not proven. So it looks like, well, four biologists were there, and we all witnessed the smallmouth that I brought in. And of course, there was a lot of jokes about leave it to Jason BARNUCZ to bring a smallmouth bass in out of a lake trout lake, 100 miles from the nearest major bass population. Although Lake Opiongo has a great bass population, not as good as other southern lakes, but the northern lakes, the fish, they're limited by habitat, Scotty. That's why they can't do well. Yeah. But the egg reabsorbing piece of it is really, and I've never really experienced or witnessed it before, but when fish can't spawn, it's believed that they reabsorb those eggs because energy goes into egg production. And if eggs can't be dispersed for spawning, it's believed that those eggs are reabsorbed. And I'm going to bet you probably know this, Scotty, like even in a healthy population of fish, like you take a Rice Lake for walleye, or take a Lake Erie for smallmouth, you're going to have a lot of fish that they don't spawn every year. Not every bass spawns every year. Some do, some don't. Even the largest, healthiest fish may not spawn. A trigger might happen. It's been shown that not all fish spawn. Most do, but not all. And I'm sure that there's some sort of biological reason why. But just like humans, we're all individually slightly different. And so I believe that that's probably what triggers it. In these Canadian shield lakes, these are deep oligotrophic lakes. These fish are feeding on ciscos. The lake we were on, they're eating a lot of yellow perch, but I know there's cisco in that lake too. So there is a forage base there for smallmouth, but they're not going to be in large numbers, and they probably don't spawn that successfully in some of these deep, cold shield lakes.
Right. No, absolutely. And, it's been more prevalent that I've heard it happening more so for walleye, that they'll absorb their eggs, but it's not out of the question to suggest that other species of fish do the exact same. Trevor put on a bit of a show. Unfortunately, as you said, didn't tip his guide as well as he should have.
Yeah.
But it's great seeing the family up there doing some wondrous things. And as I said, introducing them to lead core is just a whole new presentation that can be used in many, many species.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the kids and Heather for the trip. Like I do a lot of canoeing and that kind of intensive activity for work sometimes. That was their first trip. Heather's done trips with me before we had kids. So it was our first trip as a family. Everyone came out safe and sound. We got everything back okay. A 2-kilometer portage is no easy feat for anyone who's ever not done a portage before. But traveling with a large group, if someone falling behind, someone picks up the slack. We all work together. Everyone, just like anglers that tune into this show, we all work together and help everybody out. And it was a great trip. And we're going to do it again next year for sure.
Awesome, buddy. We have less than a minute before our hour is up. If you had your choice, what species of fish would you like to talk about next week?
Well, if I was a smart man, I'd say whatever Jim wants to talk about. Because he doesn't know where I live, but he's got friends in high places. Yeah, you know what? There's any fish is good with me, man. You know me, man. I got a whole library of stuff back here. Anything is good with me, but largemouth and muskie came up. I'm good for both.
Okay, buddy. Well, we'll be doing a poll, and we'll be announcing it before next week's show. So stay tuned to that. Jay, thanks for everything.
And, I'll comment on Tony. Tony, happy hour is not Happy Hour Lake, but the Fireball did make an appearance.
Right on, brother. You take care now. All the best. Well, there it is. We are over the hour, so we will take the list of everybody who is watching. And why won't this work for me? There. Okay. There we go. I'll take a screenshot. All right. And we'll be giving away a prize next week on the wheel. If your name is there, make sure that you tune in for the Power Hour. Till then, guys, have yourselves a great week. All the best. Stay classy. You know, Walleye Wednesday is going to be coming up. Trout Tuesday is tomorrow, and there's going to be some great pieces, some great edits, some great video. Stay tuned to that. But in the meantime, all the best. Take care. Peace.